Everything changed in a matter of seconds. I mean, the confetti had barely even settled on the turf. The Lombardi Trophy, it was still carrying the literal fingerprints of this incredibly grueling, completely unforgiving season. Yet right there in the quiet aftermath of ultimate victory, the doubts began to creep in. Just listen to this from veteran linebacker DeMarcus Lawrence. He said, "I was very close. Went through a long offseason of going back and forth. Am I going to retire? Am I not?" We need to just sit with that for a second. You've got a man standing at the absolute, literal pinnacle of the sport, staring down the barrel of a decision to just walk away from the whole shebang. Why? Well, because reaching the top, that's incredibly hard. But staying there, that is a total nightmare.
Welcome back to this NFL Nexus explainer. And look, today we are absolutely not here to celebrate a championship. We're here to document a siege. You see, the Seattle Seahawks' historic victory in Super Bowl LX, it wasn't just some happy fairy tale ending. No, it was actually the agonizing, heavy beginning of a massive burden. A gigantic target painted directly on their backs. When you wear the crown in this league, every single opponent in the National Football League treats you like you are their very own Super Bowl. The hunt is officially on, guys. And that pressure is absolutely 100% suffocating.
So let's contextualize this absolute dominance for a minute. We're talking about a pristine, almost completely untouchable 14-3 regular season record where they captured first place in the vicious dog-eat-dog NFC West. It was the culmination of literal blood, sweat, and tears that ended with that Super Bowl LX victory over the New England Patriots, securing only the second title in this incredibly storied franchise's history. But let's talk about the heart of this formidable roster, DeMarcus Lawrence. He is entering his 13th season in the league, his second with Seattle, and he is armed with a staggering, massive 3-year, $42 million deal. That contract, it's not just money, it is a symbol. It's a massive financial anchor representing the sheer weight of expectation. That is a serious investment in dominance. But man, it brings a crushing daily pressure to justify every single penny of it. Especially when the rest of the league is adapting, evolving, and coming specifically for your head. Now, what is really fascinating here is how perfectly this captures the psychological toll of a title defense. Honestly, this right here is the philosophical thesis of our entire explainer today. Lawrence continued his thought process with this gem. He stated, "It's easy to take over a kingdom, but the hard part is when you got the kingdom and now it's time to defend it." Seriously, let those words sink in for a minute. He didn't want to go out the easy way, just sitting back and eating the fruits of his labor. He stayed because he wanted to prove the championship wasn't some fluke or a facade. It was real. But defending a kingdom, that requires soldiers. It requires a relentless, unforgiving, brutal battle for every single inch of turf. And that battle, it's starting right now, today, in the blistering heat of training camp. So, who will defend the walls? It is the ultimate question, echoing through the halls of the Seahawks facility right now. The veteran anxiety felt by Lawrence, you can see it bleeding directly into the brutal, gladiatorial roster battles unfolding out there on the practice field. That championship roster you all knew and loved, look, it's already fractured. Crucial pieces are missing. And the terrifying reality of the NFL is that nostalgia does not win football games. Period. New blood absolutely must step up, or this empire is going to crumble before the leaves even begin to change color. Section 1, Battle for the Backfield, Filling the Void Left by Giants. Okay, to really understand who steps into the fire here, we first have to look at the massive, glaring void this team is facing. Kenneth Walker III, an absolute cornerstone of their offensive identity, has departed in free agency to the Kansas City Chiefs. And as if that wasn't a hard enough blow to absorb, disaster literally struck in camp. Zach Charbonnet, the man everyone expected to shoulder the heavy load, he suffered a devastating season-altering torn ACL. He landed directly on the PUP list, so the backfield isn't just open, it is a terrifying vacuum waiting to be filled. And that brings us to a head-to-head clash of colossal proportions. Over on one side, you have Jadarian Price. He's the 32nd overall pick, armed with this premium draft pedigree and just immense sky-high expectations. But he is still a rookie. Then, on the other side, you've got Emmanuel Wilson, signed to a one-year deal after putting in the work as a backup for the Green Bay Packers. So you have to ask yourself, can a first-round rookie actually handle the complex blitz pickups of a Super Bowl defense? And on the flip side, can Wilson elevate his game to become a primary every-down weapon for a reigning champion? Every single rep in minicamp, every read, every cut in practice is under an absolute microscope right now. But right when you think you've got this dynamic figured out, enter the wild card, George Halani. This brutally competitive positional battle has suddenly, out of nowhere, mutated into a desperate three-way war of attrition. During minicamp, Helani and Price were quite literally splitting the first-team reps right down the middle. Now, the Seahawks operated with a heavy committee approach last season, right? And they desperately want to recreate that same magic. But here's the thing. A committee requires trust. It requires undeniable, flawless execution. Price, Wilson, and Helani are in an absolute dogfight for every single offensive touch. They know full well that a single fumble in August, that could literally cost them a starting role in September. It's do or die out there. Which leads us to the next massive question. Will the front line hold? Because a championship offense is utterly, completely useless if the trenches collapse in front of them. The margin between executing a flawless title defense and suffering a total, humiliating collapse, it's razor thin. And right now, there is a glaring, massive crack in the armor of the Seattle offensive line, a weakness that defensive coordinators across the entire league have already circled in bright red ink.
Section 2. War in the Trenches, Exposing the Weak Link.
We have to be brutally honest here. The right guard position is the ultimate vulnerability for Seattle right now. Anthony Bradford is entering the final year of his contract, and yeah, despite starting all 17 games during a Super Bowl run, the underlying data is frankly alarming. Bradford posted an abysmal 50.6 overall grade from Pro Football Focus. That ranked him a dismal 70th out of 81 qualified guards. I mean, he was the clear weak link, struggling massively with both pass block and run block assignments. And in a league defined by exploitation, you simply cannot hide the 70th ranked guard. You just can't. The front office knew this, which is exactly why they drafted Bo Stevens in the 5th round out of Iowa. Now you're probably wondering, how does a day 3 rookie realistically usurp a 17-game starter who already has a ring? Well, it comes down to potential versus liability. Stevens is raw, sure, but he represents a super high ceiling. Bradford has the experience, but his floor was exposed time and time again last season. If Stevens can just prove he isn't a liability in pass protection, and if he can bring that brutal physical edge required in Seattle's scheme, guys, he could force a shocking change on this offensive line. But they aren't the only ones in the room. Lurking quietly in the shadows is third-year pro Christian Haynes. He knows the system inside and out. He knows the standard, and he is just waiting in the wings for a single fleeting moment of weakness from either Bradford or Stevens to seize that starting role all for himself. The coaches are looking for someone, literally anyone, to step up and secure that right flank. If someone performs, a change will be made for sure. So the pressure on Bradford, it is absolute.
So, who replaces the departed? The defensive backfield, which was once the absolute pride of Seattle, is now echoing with a silent, massive void. Colby Bryant, a vital, crucial piece of their championship puzzle, has walked away in free agency, inking a new deal with the Chicago Bears. His departure leaves a gaping hole at the strong safety position. And look, that is a position that requires not just raw athleticism, but supreme football intelligence and just terrifying physicality.
Section 3. The secondary standoff. Next man up. The situation back here in the secondary is painting a picture of total, unadulterated chaos. Look, training camp is supposed to be all about building chemistry, right? But right as camp begins, Nick Emenwari is suddenly sidelined with a highly unfortunate ankle injury. The timing, it literally could not be worse. So now, the safety room is entirely up for grabs, and it has become the literal definition of next man up. Which brings us to this fascinating contrast of styles and resumes. On one side, you have Tai Akoda. He brings a gritty, battle-tested resume to the table, 11 starts last season, and 65 really solid tackles. He's the incumbent, he's the known commodity. But directly across from him is the raw, explosive potential of Bud Clark. Drafted in the 2nd round out of TCU, Clark was brought here specifically to be a game changer. This is a direct head-to-head clash for snaps. Akoda gives you that high floor, but Clark has the draft capital and a terrifyingly high ceiling. Every single time the ball is in the air during 7-on-7 drills, this battle is absolutely raging. And yet, somehow, the narrative arc only gets more incredible with the return of D'Anthony Bell. Just think about this guy's journey for a second. He played 14 games for Seattle, only to be waived in December. Just totally cast aside. He lands with the Carolina Panthers for a brief playoff run, getting a little taste of what he left behind. And now, he is back, re-signed in March. Benefiting directly from Emenwari's injury, Bell is returning to Seattle to fight for his literal NFL life. This isn't just a two-man race anymore. It is a three-horse, desperate war for survival in the secondary. So who commands the special forces? It is the forgotten third phase of the game, until it costs you absolutely everything. Special teams. When you are defending a dynasty, the margins are so infinitesimally small that a single mistake on a punt return or a single missed block on a kickoff, that can burn the entire kingdom to the ground. The Seahawks know they cannot ignore this.
Section 4. The Specialists. The Need for Speed. The returner battle is perhaps the most wide-open job in camp right now, and that's primarily because of this dizzying puzzle of roster management. You have Rashid Shaheed, who literally just signed a massive 3-year, $51 million contract. Now, that kind of money strongly suggests a much larger role on the core offense, which might actually disqualify him from taking the brutal, high-speed hits on special teams. So that opens the door for Jadarian Price, who has this incredible pedigree of 2 kickoff return touchdowns back at Notre Dame in 2025. But wait, if Price becomes the starting running back, they might need to protect him too. Which brings us to a hyper-specific, utterly game-changing number, 4.4. That is the blazing combine speed of 6th-round draft pick Emmanuel Henderson Jr. Let's detail exactly why he is the ultimate dark horse threat here. Henderson desperately needs to make a massive impact on special teams just to make the 53-man roster. Back at Kansas, his senior year was electric. We're talking 18 returns for 455 yards. That 4.4 speed is the kind of terrifying velocity that flips field position in an instant. With Shaheed and Price potentially prioritized elsewhere, Henderson is lurking right there, ready to just outrun them all for that final spot on the active roster.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. We bring the narrative full circle back to DeMarcus Lawrence. He asked, "Are you going to start building up your walls and making sure everything is structurally prepared to defend it?" Every single one of these desperate camp battles, from the bruised ribs in the running back room to the relentless, exhausting hand fighting at right guard to the high-speed collisions on special teams, every single rep is a brick. It's a brick that is desperately needed to fortify the massive walls of their kingdom against a league that wants absolutely nothing more than to tear them down to the studs. The confetti has been swept away. The rings have been sized. The kingdom is truly theirs. But the siege has just begun. The question isn't whether they can win it all again. The question is whether this new, fractured roster can survive the brutal, agonizing weight of defending it. And we will be tracking every single development of this siege right here on this NFL Nexus explainer. The target is squarely on their backs, and the rest of the league is incredibly hungry. So, which of these unproven warriors do you think will ultimately step up and secure the walls? Drop a comment with your thoughts below. And hey, if you want to support the channel, become a member, drop a like, make sure you subscribe to NFL Nexus, and we will see you in the next explainer.